See, everything's fine. Eleanor smiled. She then continued, Dustin, to be honest, I think we've always gotten along quite well. I hope we can continue to be friends. Yeah, having more friends is always good, right? Elena nodded in agreement. Dustin said coldly, forget about being friends. I can't afford to be your friend. Dustin, please give us a chance. We are truly sorry. Please, have mercy on us, Eleanor pleaded weakly. Before discussing terms with me, you need to show your sincerity first, Dustin said impassively. Did they really think they could absolve themselves of guilt with just a few words? You want our sincerity. All right. Eleanor nodded, then clapped. The next thing they knew, a red ribbon suddenly dropped from the ceiling of Grace Brothel. Following that, a stunning red figure jumped out from the third floor, leaping into the air. She grabbed onto the red ribbon with one hand and descended gracefully. The beautiful woman wore a classic red dress and a jewel on her forehead. Her feet were flawless and delicate, devoid of any imperfections. She appeared serene and carried a mysterious allure in her gaze, embodying the grace of a fairy and the enchanting charm of a fox spirit. Her appearance instantly drew everyone's attention. A wave of astonishment rippled through the crowd from the first to the third floor. The men were completely mesmerized. It was as if their souls had been ensnared. Even Dustin, who was known for his exceptional composure, found himself briefly entranced by the woman in red. No one could deny that the woman was gorgeous and was considered an exceptional beauty. It wasn't only her looks. Her most striking feature was her seductive charisma that entranced anyone who gazed upon her. The art of seduction. Caught in a momentary daze, Dustin swiftly snapped out of it. The woman in red had exuded a subtle, entrancing fragrance as she descended gracefully, enough to draw in anyone who inhaled it. That was just a small part of it. Her true strength lay in her gaze. Her every glance radiated a subtle light capable of stealing one's soul. This was one of the mystical arts of the martial arts world, the art of seduction. Clearly, the woman in red was far from an ordinary figure. It's Holly Hudson. She's appeared. As expected of one of the top 10 beauties ranked on the beauty ranking. She is truly breathtaking. If only I could spend one passionate night with Holly, I would die a happy death. Holly is Grace Brothel's best card, but the only thing she sells is her art. No matter how rich you are, you won't ever be able to get intimate with her. So stop dreaming. The crowd was in awe as they gazed at the woman descending from above. Regardless of gender, every single person present was utterly captivated. Grace Brothel's bustling business owed much of its success to Holly's presence. As their best card, her appearance never failed to create a sensation. There were rumors that anyone who could pass Holly's test would be entitled to a free intimate night with her. However, until today, no one has succeeded. First of all, to earn the right to take the test, the person must spend a significant amount of money to stand out among the many affluent, wealthy individuals. Afterward, Holly would ask questions for assessment. However, an opportunity like this was extremely rare, happening only once a month. The test was also unique and different every time. That was why, over the years, no one had managed to earn her favor. Of course, there were instances in the past when certain high-ranking officials, with nefarious intentions, attempted to use force on her, but they only ended up dead in the streets the next day. It was only later that people realized that the Celestial Alliance fully supported Grace Brothel, and that Holly was none other than the sister of the Celestial Alliance's most talented individual, Fenley Hudson. Fenley was one of Oakvale's for Princes and the Celestial Alliance's guildmaster. He shared an equally renowned reputation with Adam Spanner, the god of war, Anders Mosey, the Varos warrior, and the Sword Union's Glenn Hadley. Even the aristocrats and royal family members needed to treat them with great respect. Who would dare offend a person like him? Dustin, what do you think? Have we proved our sincerity? Eleanor smiled meaningfully. Holly is Grace Brothel's best card and seldomly appears in public. We spent a significant amount for your sake. inviting her here to entertain you. As long as you pass her test, you'll be able to spend the night with her? That's right. Elena grinned. Holly is the goddess that countless men dream of. It will be your honor to spend an intimate night with her. In their perspective, all the men in the world were the same. Men's weakness was always women, especially gentle and alluring women. They believed nobody could resist Holly's beauty and grace. What do you take me for? I'm here to discuss a serious matter, but this is the game you're playing. What's the meaning of this? Dustin's expression was cold. Don't you like it? Eleanor was surprised. When I said sincerity, I meant information on Lana's murderer, not these empty relationships. Dustin was getting impatient. Dustin had seen all kinds of beautiful women. A mere seduction art would not ensnare him. Did they really think he was controlled by instincts only? Dear gentlemen, why are you so mad? After her descent, Holly wore an enchanting smile as she approached Dustin. She poured two glasses of wine and remarked, "Guests are always welcome here, and it's an honor to have you visit Grace Brothel. Allow me to raise the first toast." She lifted a glass from the table and downed the wine in one shot. Dustin grunted in acknowledgement and took a sip from his glass out of politeness. "Dear gentlemen, I'm friends with Ms. Welch and Miss Forrest. I heard that there may have been a misunderstanding between both sides. I'll be extremely grateful if you could overlook any past grievances," Holly said with a smile. "Miss Hudson, there's no need to involve yourself in our fight. It won't benefit you," Dustin said indifferently. "Since you appear to be a talented gentleman, I'm certain you also possess great generosity. Why bother with trivial matters involving two women? If you can let this go for my sake, I'll make sure to repay it doubly in the future." Holly's smile grew wider. The radiant white light in her eyes intensified as she spoke, and her fragrance grew more potent. This made her turn even more charming and seductive. She was just like a seductress. This was the effect of her art of seduction in motion. Once used, it was irresistible to any man. Over time, those with weak mental fortitudes would grow confused and only obey her orders. This skill of hers had 100% success rate. "Miss Hudson, I'm sorry. I can't do that." Dustin remained unfazed. "One more thing. I strongly advise you to stop deploying your art of seduction. That method doesn't work on me and is extremely rude. Please have some respect for yourself." Dustin emphasized the words loudly, resonating like a bell tolling in Holly's heart. Holly's body convulsed as though struck by lightning, and the radiance in her eyes vanished instantly. Her expression betrayed a look of complete disbelief. She never expected Dustin to be this powerful. Not only did he see through her tricks, but he also put an end to her skill with just a few words. Who exactly was this person before her? "I didn't expect you to be such an exceptional individual. I just made a fool of myself. Please forgive me." Holly took a deep breath and soon smiled again. The aura that surrounded her gradually dissipated until she finally returned to normal. "Miss Hudson, the art of seduction may be useful, but you should use it wisely lest you court disaster," Dustin remarked impassively. "Thank you for the advice." Holly bowed courteously, then turned her attention to Eleanor and Elena. "Miss Welch, Miss Forrest, this gentleman is a truly extraordinary individual. I'm sorry, I won't be able to help you with this." But Eleanor and Elena exchanged glances, at a loss of what to do. They initially intended for Holly to seduce Dustin before exacting their next steps. That way, they would have a higher rate of success. They didn't expect their plan to fall apart at the very beginning. "Miss Welch, please carry on with your conversation. I'll be taking my leave first." Holly smiled apologetically before leaving upstairs. Since her art of seduction was useless, there was no reason for her to stay any longer since she would be of no help. "Eleanor Welch, go ahead and use up all your tricks. I'd like to see what else you can come up with," Dustin said coldly. "Don't misunderstand our intentions. We just wanted you to relax a little here." "We meant no harm." Eleanor forced a smile. "I'm relaxed now. Can we move on to the main issue? Dustin's gaze turned hostile. Of course. Of course. Eleanor checked the time on her phone and then handed over a key. She said, "This is the key to Diamond Suite 4. The murderer you're looking for is inside. You'll know who it is once you head in." Dustin glanced at the keys on the table and said meaningfully, "All this secrecy, just what are you scheming? You sound as if two weak women like us are capable of plotting a scheme." Eleanor forced a smile. "Yeah, we've sincerely repented and have no other ulterior motives. We swear on our lives." Eleanor swore, going all out to convince Dustin. Eleanor's eyes twitched when she heard her, wishing she could slap her across the face. "For heaven's sake, why did you include me in your swear?" Eleanor muttered silently to herself. "Since there's no scheming involved, let's head up together," Dustin said casually. Eleanor's expression froze. She glanced at Elena and was quick to come up with an explanation. "It's not convenient for Elena since she's in a wheelchair. I have to stay here and take care of her. Besides, the murderer is treacherous. It's dangerous for us to go up there." "Exactly. It's too dangerous and inconvenient." Elena nodded repeatedly in agreement. Dustin could tell they were panicking. Instead of exposing them, he took out a bottle of medicine and placed it on the table. He said coldly, honestly, "I don't trust you. Just in case, I need both of you to drink this poison. If anything happens to me up there, I'll see the both of you in hell." "What?" Eleanor and Elena froze, breaking out in cold sweat. Already feeling guilty, they were now completely flustered. They didn't expect Dustin to make such a demand. "Dustin, is that really necessary? We'll be waiting downstairs. Drinking poison is too extreme, isn't it?" Eleanor swallowed nervously. "That's right, I'm in a wheelchair. I can't exactly run away." Elena forced a smile. "What's the matter? Do you not dare, or are you feeling guilty?" Dustin looked at them suspiciously. "I can't trust you if you refuse to drink it, so there's no point in continuing this discussion." Upon hearing this, both of them exchanged glances and reluctantly nodded. "All right, just to prove our sincerity, we'll drink it," Eleanor said through gritted teeth. After all, risks were necessary to gain success. It seemed like if they avoided drinking the poison, they wouldn't be able to bluff their way through. They would figure out their next steps later. With so many skilled doctors in Oakvale, neutralizing the poison shouldn't be a problem. Eleanor took a deep breath before finally grabbing the medicine bottle and taking a forceful sip. After swallowing, she handed the bottle to Elena. "Do I really have to drink it?" Elena was almost in tears. If she had known that it would come to this, she wouldn't have come along in the first place. "Of course, we have nothing to hide." Eleanor shot her a glare. "All right." Elena sighed in resignation. She reluctantly took the poison and took a light sip. "Great. It seems like the both of you are truly committed to this." Dustin smirked coldly. He then picked up the keys and headed straight upstairs. There would only be two scenarios waiting for him on the third floor in Diamond Suite 4. Either the murderer would be inside like Eleanor claimed, or it was a murderous trap. Regardless, he was determined to find out. He was dying to see what kind of tricks they had up their sleeves. The third floor of Grace Brothel was a special area made into rooms. After a night of fun, the wealthy patrons would often find a charming companion and proceed to the third floor to have a private moment. The rooms on the third floor were soundproof and designed to provide a high level of privacy. Some distinguished guests even had specially designed private passages for their access to prevent being noticed. Dustin made his way slowly upstairs and displayed the key card to the guard by the entrance. "Sir, this way, please." Upon getting a closer look, the bodyguard quickly had a respectful demeanor and led Dustin inside personally. Grace Brothel was separated into 4 sections: diamond, gold, silver, and copper. The diamond rooms were the most prestigious rooms that even ordinary, wealthy individuals lacked the qualifications to enter. Only those with absolute power and influence had the privilege to stay in the prestigious Diamond Suite. "Sir, Your room is ready. I wish you a delightful stay." After the bodyguard escorted Dustin to Diamond Suite 4, he bid Dustin farewell and departed. Dustin approached the door and knocked gently, but there was no response. He sensed no apparent danger. At least, there was no imminent threat. Dustin unlocked the door with the key and walked straight in. Inside, he could smell the fragrance of scented candles. The room was also decorated in warm colors, creating a romantic atmosphere. Right across from the door was an elegant arrangement of sandalwood furniture adorned with fine wine and snacks. On the left, a partition draped in red lace concealed an assortment of intimate items, while on the right, a similar partition with white lace covered a bed and a wardrobe. Dustin's gaze swept around the area, and he soon noticed someone lying on the bed on the right. However, he couldn't tell who it was since they were covered with a blanket. "Who are you? Why not reveal yourself?" Dustin spoke calmly, but the person on the bed remained completely still. It appeared as if they were asleep. "Since you're unwilling to show yourself, don't blame me for being impolite." Without hesitation, he approached the figure and lifted the blanket. However, the scene before him left him in shock. He could not wrap his mind around it. That was because the person lying on the bed was none other than Holly, who was fully naked. Holly had the perfect figure and skin as flawless as snow. As she lay serenely on the bed, she resembled a perfect work of art. It was an irresistible temptation to any man. However, Dustin had no room for such thoughts because she was already dead. Holly was lying on her side, her body slightly curled up. There was a knife right in her chest, obviously a fatal blow. This meant that Holly had died without having the chance to utter a sound. The surprising part was that she had only gone upstairs a few minutes earlier than he did before meeting a tragic end. Who could have been the murderer, and what was their motive? Dustin was frowning as he scanned his surroundings, but couldn't find anything suspicious. He could tell that it was the work of a professional. Wait a minute. Something was wrong. Dustin seemed to have realized something and began walking away. However, he had just reached the door when two extravagantly dressed women burst into the room. "Hey, who are you? What are you doing in Holly's room?" one of the women questioned. Before Dustin could explain, the women's attention shifted toward the right partition. When they saw Holly's lifeless body, they froze. A second later, they let out high-pitched screams. "Someone's been murdered." Their screams started a commotion throughout Grace Brothel. Numerous bodyguards soon rushed in from all directions, drawing the attention of the guests who had been enjoying themselves. It was only until this moment that Dustin was sure he had been set up. Although he had mentally prepared for it, he was still furious at this outcome. "Why you? You murderer! How dare you kill Holly? You just committed a grave crime. Guards, someone hurry up and arrest him." The two Grace Brothel employees clamored, accusing Dustin of being the murderer. Their shouts soon resulted in a crowd that gathered around Dustin. Every one of them glared at Dustin angrily. They were filled with righteous indignation. Since Holly was Grace Brothel's best card and had countless admirers, her abrupt demise left the people feeling regretful. Of course, they were still mostly filled with hatred toward the murderer. "How dare you commit murder in a place like this? You're digging your own grave." Grace Brothel is under the Celestial Alliance, and Holly is Finley's younger sister. There's no way you'll be able to get away with this. Get down on your knees and surrender immediately, or else you'll be dealt with accordingly. The crowd unleashed a series of accusations. Judging from the hostile expressions on their faces, it was clear that they wanted to tear Dustin apart. "I didn't kill her. She was already dead when I entered the room," Dustin explained expressionlessly. "Nonsense! You were the only one we saw in the room. Who else could it have been?" "That's right. We saw it with our own eyes. You killed Holly." The two women from Grace Brothel were filled with grief, refusing to believe Dustin's words. "Bastard! You've been caught in the act. Don't try to argue your way out. If you know what's good for you, surrender immediately. There's no need to waste our time on him. He committed a grave crime of killing Holly. Let's get him together and avenge her. A few of Holly's admirers fumed until they could no longer contain their fury. They roared and rushed forward, attempting to attack Dustin. Dustin stomped on the ground forcefully, unleashing a powerful surge of energy. It sent everyone who was nearby flying, and they crashed and groaned in pain. For a moment, the crowd was shocked. Even though they were angry, nobody dared approach him. Even a fool could tell that Dustin was not easy to deal with. He was undoubtedly a skilled martial artist if he was able to send over a dozen people flying with just a single stomp. Brad, don't get too arrogant just because you are good at fighting. I'm warning you, once the elite fighters from the Celestial Alliance arrive, they'll surely tear you apart. That's right. No matter how impressive you are, you won't stand a chance against the Celestial Alliance. You'll be a dead man today. The crowd clamored, firmly holding their positions and guarding every entrance and exit. The situation came to a chokehold. Dustin glanced around and noticed Eleanor and Elena huddled in a corner, observing the situation. Ignoring the crowd, Dustin jumped straight down from the third floor to the first. Hurry up, let's go. Eleanor knew they were in trouble and quickly pushed Elena, prepared to make a swift escape. However, as soon as they turned around, they saw a flicker of movement. Dustin, who had been far away from them just moments ago, was now standing right in front of them. Trying to set me up? This must have been part of your scheme, Dustin said coldly, a murderous glint gleaming in his eyes. No, it has nothing to do with us. We have no idea what's going on. Eleanor shook her head repeatedly. You were the one who gave me the key, and there's a dead body inside the room. Do you really think I'll believe that you didn't know anything about it? Dustin approached them slowly. Dustin, I know it's hard for you to believe, but I'm not lying. I didn't know Holly would end up dead in there, Eleanor said with a panicked expression. She had merely followed Anders' instructions, doing her best to lead Dustin into Diamond Suite 4 on the third floor. As for what was inside, she truly had no idea. She had initially suspected that martial arts experts would be waiting in ambush or that something similar had been prepared. However, Eleanor never expected Anders' so-called ambush would involve Holly's lifeless body. Everyone knew that Holly was Fenley's younger sister. Now that Holly was dead, Fenley would undoubtedly take action, and everyone involved in the incident would face the consequences. It wasn't only Dustin that would suffer. They would have to suffer with him. It wasn't until this moment that she realized Anders had used them. They were like pawns that could be discarded at any moment. However, at this point, it was too late for regrets. All Eleanor could do now was to firmly hold her ground and try her best to extricate herself from the situation. Are you telling me this has nothing to do with you? Dustin narrowed his eyes. That's right. We know nothing. Eleanor immediately shook her head. That's right. We've been framed. Please don't misunderstand. Elena echoed repeatedly. All right, since you claim it has nothing to do with you, then tell me who exactly was behind this? Who instructed you to do this? Dustin countered. Eleanor paled and instinctively glanced at Elena. Elena avoided her gaze, looking guilty and unsure of how to respond. Are you not willing to tell me, or are you having trouble making up a story? Dustin's gaze was hostile. I gave you a chance, but you didn't take it. If that's how you want it, don't blame me for being ruthless. With that, Dustin suddenly grabbed Eleanor's throat and lifted her over his head. Eleanor struggled to breathe, her face flushing red while the veins on her forehead bulged. Her entire being was overwhelmed with the fear of death, causing her to tremble uncontrollably. Dustin, don't act recklessly, Elena was about to do something about it and threaten Dustin when she felt her neck squeeze. Dustin had seized her by the throat with his other hand and lifted her up from her wheelchair. Both of you deserve to die. Dustin grabbed them both in his hands like they were nothing. Stop it right there. Right then, a furious roar erupted from the door. Following the noise, a group of martial artists dressed in formidable attire rushed into the room. Judging from their clothes, they were the Celestial Alliance's elite fighters. You bastard! You've got quite the nerve to start a scene at Grace Brothel. Are you tired of living? A man with a crew cut who led the group yelled angrily. Who are you? Dustin released his grip, letting the two women fall heavily to the ground. My name is Alan Bossman. I'm the Celestial Alliance's attendant, in charge of Grace Brothel. Anyone who stirs up trouble here is disrespecting me and the Celestial Alliance. Alan glared at them as he yelled, Mr. Bossman, you've arrived just in time. We've got a big problem at Grace Brothel. At that moment, a lady with heavy makeup rushed down the flight of stairs, looking anxious. There's no need to worry. Madam Lynch, I just stopped this bastard from attacking someone, Alan said, still oblivious to the situation. He didn't just attack someone, he killed them.